Tomorrow, the car you've had your eye on will suddenly cost $2,000 to $5,000 more because of a new tariff. Or your favorite car brand starts getting harder to find, or the prices at the pump start climbing even higher. That's the reality of what would happen if the trade war was brewing between the US and Europe right now. Stick with us to find out how these tariffs could affect everything from your next car purchase to your daily commute. Chapter 1. France's swift and decisive response to US tariffs. In early 2025, the United States, under President Trump, approved a hefty 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports, aiming to protect US manufacturers. This decision set off a chain of reactions, with one of the most significant coming from France. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot wasted no time in voicing his opposition. He declared that both France and the European Union would not stand idly by as their industries faced such economic pressure from across the Atlantic. This wasn't just a political statement, it had real, tangible implications, especially for the automotive sector. Steel and aluminum are the core materials in car production, representing up to 57% of the cost of manufacturing a vehicle. Higher material costs translate to higher prices for consumers, potentially driving up the cost of a new car by thousands of dollars. France's countermeasure was a clear signal. Europe wouldn't let its industries be undermined without a fight. Automakers across the continent, from Renault to Peugeot to Mercedes-Benz, now face the very real possibility of significantly higher production expenses. For the average consumer, this could mean paying more for cars. These changes could hit your wallet in more ways than one. For instance, consumers in Europe are already seeing price increases in new cars. According to the European Commission, new car models could see price hikes of 5% to 10%. For a typical car costing around €30,000, a 5% increase could mean €1,500 more per car. This is just one example, but imagine the ripple effects on everything from construction materials to electronics, which rely on aluminum and steel as well. Chapter 2. Strengthening ties with China. Amid this new wave of trade tensions, France has found an unlikely ally in China. As U.S. relations become more strained, France has taken a strategic step towards diversifying its economic ties. In 2023, France's trade with China skyrocketed to nearly $78.9 billion, a remarkable leap from decades of diplomatic engagement. French President Macron's visit to Beijing in April 2023 wasn't just a ceremonial gesture. It resulted in 18 major agreements, covering everything from aviation to agriculture, and most notably, automotive technology. For the French automotive sector, this shift is not just about making new friends. It's about survival. China is a global leader in electric vehicle production and EV battery technology, areas that French automakers are heavily invested in. With China's vast consumer market and dominance in EV tech, France is positioning itself to benefit from this shift. In 2023, China accounted for over 50% of global electric vehicle production, and French companies like Renault and PSA Group are increasingly turning to China for collaborations in EV tech. The goal is clear. France wants to capitalize on China's booming EV market, worth an estimated $300 billion by 2025. For consumers, this could lead to better and more affordable electric vehicle options, as France's car manufacturers tap into China's cutting-edge EV technology. It's not just about new cars. It's about making the transition to electric vehicles more accessible to everyone. This could also stimulate job creation in clean energy sectors and manufacturing within Europe, offering long-term economic benefits. While trade with China is growing, what does that mean for consumers? With China's dominance in the electric vehicle market, French consumers could soon benefit from more affordable and diverse EV options. For example, in 2024, China's electric car exports reached 2 million units, and European manufacturers are now looking to tap into this growth. As a result, EVs may become more accessible, reducing reliance on traditional fossil fuel-powered vehicles, lowering emissions, and potentially cutting costs at the pump. Chapter 3. Ripple effects on Europe's auto supply chain. The ripple effects of these tariffs go far beyond just car prices. Europe's automotive supply chain, once operating like a well-oiled machine, is now facing major disruptions. Steel and aluminum, the backbone of car production, are now more expensive due to tariffs. These materials used to move freely across borders, but now they are burdened with added costs and trade uncertainties. Europe's auto manufacturers are being forced to either find new suppliers or adjust their production strategies. For instance, ArcelorMittal, a leading global steel manufacturer, announced a 30 euros per ton price increase for steel coils in Europe, effective for shipments in April, making it more expensive for companies like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz to produce vehicles at scale. Even outside of the automotive sector, industries are feeling the pinch. Airbus CEO Guillaume Faury hinted that tariffs might push companies like Airbus to prioritize non-US customers to avoid the rising costs of doing business with the US. This could, in turn, affect the entire European manufacturing ecosystem. For the average worker in Europe, this could mean increased job insecurity. For example, factory workers in the automotive sector may face slower production rates or even layoffs as companies struggle to absorb the higher material costs. For consumers, it could mean higher prices for products beyond just cars. Think home appliances, electronics, and other goods that rely on the same materials. For the average European consumer, the supply chain disruptions could mean delays in vehicle deliveries. With rising production costs and tariffs driving up prices, the average consumer could face longer waiting times for cars and even higher dealership prices. Chapter 4. EU's Unified Response. France is not alone in this fight. The European Union, a powerhouse in global automotive exports, is now circling the wagons. President Macron has taken a leadership role in calling for a unified EU response against what he views as unjust US trade practices. When the EU acts as one, its collective bargaining power becomes a formidable force. While the EU initially hesitated to act, the mounting pressure from French industry leaders and trade groups pushed Europe into action. In 2024, the EU approved retaliatory tariffs on over $6 billion worth of US goods, including high-tech products, agricultural goods, and, you guessed it, automotive parts. In fact, EU tariffs could increase by up to 20%, a direct counter to US tariffs. Such retaliatory tariffs will further impact US exports, but they also affect European consumers and businesses. Companies that rely on US products might face higher prices or supply disruptions, further complicating the global supply chain. For consumers, this could translate into higher costs for goods that are imported from the US. Take, for example, tech gadgets, such as smartphones and laptops, which could see price hikes. For businesses that import these products or rely on US suppliers for essential components, production delays and cost increases could create disruptions in availability, which will ultimately affect consumers' wallets. If the EU retaliates with tariffs on US imports, everyday consumers could see rising prices across a broad range of products. For example, a 5% tariff on American-made goods could increase the cost of popular consumer products like tech gadgets, clothing, and even food. When targeted unfairly or arbitrarily, the European Union will respond firmly, von der Leyen said, following an informal gathering of EU leaders in Brussels. Chapter 5. Diversification of trade partnerships. As the unpredictability of US trade policies continues, France and the EU are accelerating their efforts to diversify their trade partnerships. The US may be a major player, but the future of trade seems to lie beyond the Atlantic. France, in particular, is intensifying its economic ties with Asia, especially China. Through strategic collaborations and trade agreements, France aims to reduce its dependency on the US and solidify its place in the global market. For example, the French government has signed new bilateral trade agreements with emerging markets, which have allowed for an increase in French exports from luxury goods to advanced manufacturing technology. China alone has become an increasingly important partner. For the French auto industry, this means not only access to a giant consumer base, but also technological partnerships in electric vehicles and autonomous driving. France is also forging partnerships with countries in Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. These regions are rapidly developing, and France is positioning itself as a key trade partner in these regions. Chapter 6. Innovation in the automotive sector. At the heart of this global trade war is the automotive sector. France's response to the US tariffs is not just about tariffs and trade relations. It's about ensuring that French automakers stay competitive in an era dominated by innovation. In 2023, French automakers announced plans to invest more than $8 billion in electric vehicle technology, autonomous driving systems, and advanced manufacturing processes. This was a clear response to the growing demand for environmentally friendly and cutting-edge vehicles. French car manufacturers like Renault and Peugeot have been pushing forward with electric vehicle EV production. In fact, Renault is expected to roll out an all-electric lineup by 2026, while Peugeot is already a leader in hybrid technology. The French government is offering generous tax credits and incentives to consumers who choose EVs, which helps drive demand. One of the most significant shifts is the transition to autonomous driving technology. France has recently passed legislation to allow self-driving cars on public roads. This move is expected to increase innovation in the automotive sector and create new opportunities for French tech startups specializing in AI and robotics. Chapter 7: The long-term impact on the global economy. The final piece of the puzzle is the broader, long-term impact of these trade wars on the global economy. U.S. Tariffs have already strained relationships between countries, but the ramifications for the global economy are far-reaching. Experts predict that these trade disputes could result in a slowdown in global economic growth. In fact, the World Trade Organization (WTO) has already forecasted that global trade growth will slow to just 3% in 2025, compared to 3.3% in the previous year. For European countries like France, a significant reduction in global trade could lead to higher unemployment rates, particularly in industries reliant on exports. Industries like automotive, aerospace, and agriculture could all face turbulence as tariffs and trade barriers multiply. On the other hand, countries like China could stand to gain as they capitalize on the shifting dynamics of global trade, attracting more international investment and taking an even larger share of the global market. For everyday Americans, prolonged trade tensions could result in higher prices for imported goods, from cars to electronics. According to a 2024 report by the Peterson Institute for International Economics, the average American household could see an additional $1,200 in costs annually due to tariffs and the knock-on effects in industries dependent on trade. As prices rise, consumers may also experience slower access to new products as manufacturers shift production elsewhere. As we've seen, the impact of France's bold response to U.S. tariffs is not just about politics or economic policies. It's about real change in the lives of millions of people, from consumers paying higher prices at the car dealership to workers in European factories worrying about their future job security. It's about how global trade and politics are interwoven in every aspect of our daily lives. The next few years will be pivotal. The question remains, can France, the EU, and the global economy navigate these challenges and emerge stronger? Or will protectionism and trade wars continue to wreak havoc on our economies and our daily lives?
The world now stands at a crossroads. The decisions made today by governments, corporations, and global policymakers will determine whether this trade war propels economies towards self-sufficiency or drags them into prolonged volatility. One thing is certain, this trade war is not just a battle between two nations, it is shaping the future of global trade as we know it. So, what do you think? Is this economic confrontation a necessary step toward independence, or is it a dangerous game that could lead to long-term economic hardship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on the latest developments in global trade, don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analysis and discussions on the evolving economic landscape.